Chapter 53, America and Fitzgerald. After summer break began, just like the changing weather, the atmosphere on the streets became livelier than usual, with more young people, swimsuits, and sales of watermelons rising. Speaking of summer, one would definitely think of swimsuits and the beach, right? Kudo Shinichi said to Komaeda Nagito, although we have it in Japan too, the vibe over in Hawaii is quite different. Ah, it's such a pity that Ayatsuji Yukito-sensei couldn't come. I really wish I could chat with sensei. Komaeda Nagito, who was invited by several people to America, was currently following Kudo Shinichi, along with his childhood friend Mori Rang, as they traveled to America together. Before, that American rich woman contacted Ayatsuji Yukito's detective agency, but Ayatsuji Yukito couldn't go himself, and couldn't make a decision for Komaeda Nagito, so he called to ask him. Komaeda Nagito thought, since it's all in America anyway, Little Raccoon-san, Kudo Shinichi's parents. She was so enthusiastic, even after a few months she still remembered him and made an international call to ask, so agreeing wasn't a big deal. After hearing Komaeda Nagito's decision, Ayatsuji Yukito said he would pass it along, then brought up another topic. Do you still remember that elevator incident you encountered before? Komaeda Nagito, which one? Ayatsuji Yukito. Since there was a period without contact, he forgotten about Komaeda Nagito's accident constitute and only now did Ayatsuji Yukito remembers. As for Komaeda Nagito, if it was just an elevator incident, at least 4 or 5 of them would probably pop into his mind at once. However, Komaeda Nagito reacted in the next second, sorry, the most recent one, right? I remember, what's up? The mastermind behind the scene is probably Kyogoku Natsuhiko, Ayatsuji Yukito said. The government even thought about assigning me to cooperate with him, but they suddenly discovered his criminal record in this case's report. Although there's no concrete evidence, it's likely he's not a good person. He knows what's wrong with this case, and might come looking for you. If you encounter any ambiguity, give me a call. Alright, Komaeda Nagito cheerfully agreed. You want me to act as bait, right? No problem, I'll do my best. Ayatsuji Yukito, no need to try too hard, just let things happen naturally. He might not necessarily come looking for you. Anyway. Ayatsuji Yukito sighed as he hung up the phone. He decided that in the future, if there was nothing important, he really shouldn't contact this former neighbor. In short, due to the surveillance by the Special Division, Ayatsuji Yukito was unable to leave the country for several years. So only Komaeda Nagito from the two-party cat search team went. The wealthy American woman expressed that it was a bit of a pity the other person couldn't come, but it didn't matter, she would still treat the one who came well. Thus, Komaeda Nagito and the group boarded the plane. When they arrived in Hawaii, due to various reasons, the plane was delayed by an hour, but fortunately, nothing major happened, and the group safely arrived at the airport, where Kudo Yusaku and Kudo Yukiko were waiting for them outside. Seeing Komaeda Nagito, Kudo Yukiko, the former great actress, immediately hugged Komaeda Nagito, her son, and her future daughter-in-law. Welcome Rang, long time no see. And also Komaeda-kun, although this is our first time meeting, if you're a friend of my Shinichi, there's no need to be formal, just feel at home. Komaeda Nagito obediently smiled, thank you for your concern. Up ahead, Kudo Shinichi, somewhat exasperated, emphasized to Komaeda Nagito, if my mom says we're friends, senpai, could you please not argue? Komaeda Nagito laughed and waved his hand, ha ha ha, I'm not the type who doesn't know how to appreciate kindness. Being considered a friend by Kudo-kun is my honor, you know? Kudo Shinichi was actually quite shocked to hear Komaeda Nagito admit that he had given up. He almost thought he had misheard. Who? When? I distinctly remember that last time you told me to think it over carefully, senpai. Komaeda Nagito seemed more puzzled than he was, then Kudo-kun kept coming back to find me, wasn't that because you had already made up your mind? Kudo Shinichi. Ah, is that how it was? That wasn't a rejection, but a suggestion. Senpai, how did you score so highly in your language exam? I am truly moved, Kudo-kun. Even though you clearly know what kind of person I am, you're still willing to come find me. Komaeda Nagito laughed softly. No wonder you're a detective full of hope. This sense of judgment and persistence is too dazzling, it really moves people. Kudo Shinichi. Don't praise me, it's just about helping find a lost kid, it doesn't count as detective work. As I said before, at least let me solve a murder case once, alright? Komaeda Nagito's manner of speaking had already become a habit. After ignoring those chaotic descriptions, Kudo Shinichi distilled the core idea, and after making a casual comment, he suddenly realized a problem. Wait. If I am your friend, then what about that Dazai Osamu who often came to find you before? He also called himself your friend, but was denied? Faced with this question, Komaeda Nagito showed a somewhat subtle expression, Dazai-kun. He was just joking back then, he didn't really mean to be my friend, you know? Kudo Shinichi felt like he understood. Anyway, it's someone else's business. Previously, when he asked Komaeda Nagito or Dazai Osamu for some intel, Komaeda Nagito always found it quite difficult, so this time Kudo Shinichi also followed suit without asking again. However, he overlooked one fact, which was that Komaeda mentioned it was during their first meeting, and Dazai-kun was joking at that time, so... what about now? This question, only much later did Kudo Shinichi realize, but it was already too late. In any case, no matter how you put it, with Kudo Shinichi's various types of cover, Komaeda Nagito appeared in the eyes of the Kudo couple as a child who lost both parents but still grew up healthily, and is a friend of their son. Everyone cooperated to maintain the lie, and there was no issue. The first day they arrived, there weren't any other activities arranged, they simply returned to the hotel, had dinner, and then adjusted to the time difference a bit. Kudo Shinichi and Komaeda Nagito shared a room, Mori Rang had a room to herself, and Kudo Yusaku and Kudo Yukiko another room. However, Yukiko said she wanted to hear about Shinichi from Mori Rang during the time she wasn't around, so she followed Rang to her room. It looked like Kudo Yusaku might be without a pillow companion tonight. The next day, Yukiko enthusiastically led the kids to the beach. Kudo Yusaku, chased by his editor, was stuck in the hotel working on his manuscript, likely missing out for the whole day. To put it bluntly, there's a possibility he'd miss the entire vacation. Alright, no need to worry about that guy. Kudo Yukiko smiled unaffectedly, we just need to show ourselves here for a bit, and then we can put our luggage on top. Shin-chan, what are you looking at? Kudo Shinichi withdrew his gaze from the vast ocean. I was thinking about piloting the sailing yacht. Although I learned it earlier, I've never done it alone. Thus, the next plan became Kudo Shinichi and Komaeda Nagito piloting the sailing yacht, while Kudo Yukiko and Mori Rang went to play in the sea for a while. Originally, Kudo Yusaku was supposed to watch the luggage, but since he wasn't here, they still needed to find a way. Even overseas, she's really famous. Referred to as the Duchess of the Night, Kudo Yukiko signed her name for the security staff, and they swore to ensure the safety of their luggage, easily resolving the issue. Because of the gender arrangement, Komaeda Nagito followed Kudo Shinichi. Kudo Shinichi, who hadn't touched a sailing yacht for a long time, looked quite excited. If there's a chance, I want to try flying a plane. Kudo-kun, you can even fly a plane? Komaeda Nagito asked in surprise. I've learned it before. Kudo Shinichi replied, for a detective, it's important to know a little about everything, right? Komaeda Nagito's eyes grew even brighter as he looked at Kudo Shinichi. Wonderful. If Kudo-kun went to another world, he would absolutely become an ultimate detective. He really understands a lot. Such an amazing person actually became his friend. No, can't keep thinking like this. But speaking of ordinary friends, it shouldn't matter, right? He has stayed at Kudo-kun's house for so long, and apart from encountering a few strange cases, it seems like Kudo-kun hasn't faced anything more dangerous. At this moment, Komaeda Nagito's phone vibrated. He held onto the sailing yacht with one hand and took out his phone with the other, seeing that it was a new message from Little Raccoon-san. Komaeda Nagito initially contacted Little Raccoon simply to expedite obtaining Kudo Shinichi's reward, but now, after 2 months of contact, their relationship has developed to a point that neither knows how to define. Because Komaeda Nagito, after comparing the literary level of this world with modern literature, found that Little Raccoon's skills were even better than he imagined, he immediately took notice and kept gathering materials on Edogawa Ranpo for him, fulfilling his requests. Since he wasn't acquainted with Edogawa Ranpo himself, all the information he provided came from parts published in Yokohama's press, which could be considered public information. Little Raccoon-san is also very spirited in keeping promises, saying that he would hand it over his works to Komaeda Nagito when he receives Edogawa Ranpo's intel. He truly would give them, and even naively each time gave a complete set. Sometimes it would be a short story, sometimes tens of thousands of characters for a medium-length story, and once even hundreds of thousands of characters, all in Japanese, asking Komaeda Nagito to help check the grammar and such. Because of helping with grammar correction, and pointing out certain traps in Japanese writing, which in fact, almost no one uses like this nowadays, if it's too obvious, readers will notice because they weren't stupid, so Komaeda Nagito receives sincerely gratitudes from Little Raccoon. After that, he inexplicably became Little Raccoon's remote Japanese tutor, and their relationship progressed to the point where Little Raccoon could complain about how complicated Japanese honorifics were and that he didn't want to learn them. Since it's indeed familiar, though the relationship is a bit subtle, unsure whether to consider it as an online friend or an online tutor, the two gradually communicated more frequently through mail. Little Raccoon would even start with, "My dear friend," and even though there are no new information on Edogawa Ranpo, he would now casually share his novel writings with Komaeda Nagito. However, this time, Little Raccoon wasn't sending Komaeda Nagito his latest work. Instead, he was discussing the plot of his new story with Komaeda Nagito. The previous narrative trick inspired me. I want to write a mystery story with a fantastic setting involving narrative tricks. Komaeda Nagito enthusiastically replied, "Not a bad idea, if it's sci-fi then blah blah blah." The two of them exchanged messages for a while, then Little Raccoon-san suddenly asked, "Where are you right now? Staying up late or traveling abroad?" "I'm currently in Hawaii, did you figure that out based on the time I replied?" "Impressive." "Sort of. But, Hawaii, huh? Seems like the perfect vacation spot for you." "Is Little Raccoon-san in the US? Not taking a vacation? We hate crowded places." "Senpai, stop playing with your phone, you'll fall." Kudo Shinichi turned his head and glanced, warning, no matter if it's you or the phone, there's still a chance of falling. "Alright." Komaeda Nagito quickly messaged a reply to Little Raccoon-san, explaining that he might not be able to replies for a while, then put his phone away. "Kudo-kun, there's a yacht up ahead." Kudo Shinichi finally managed to set sail on the mini-yacht, feeling a bit liberated. They were now some distance away from the coast, and ahead was a yacht that looked several times larger than the one they had rented, approximately a 3-story private yacht. "I know." Kudo Shinichi maintained the speed of the sailing yacht. "Just now, something fell off the yacht. I guess it was just a pet." Komaeda Nagito also noticed, a few people were leaning over the deck of that private yacht, looking down to see what had happened. Judging by their body language, they seemed quite anxious. The yacht's speed also slowed down, apparently planning to turn back and retrieve something. Based on his detective instincts, Kudo Shinichi figured it must have been a pet that fell overboard. Concerned that his sailing yacht might accidentally collide with it, he also slowed down and focused intently on observing the surface of the water. "Yes." Kudo Shinichi quickly stopped the sailing yacht, took off his coat, and, wearing only swimming trunks, jumped into the sea. After a while, he returned to the sailing yacht with a cat. The cat was soaking wet, perhaps frightened, as it clung obediently to Kudo Shinichi's head without putting up any resistance. After Kudo Shinichi got back onto the sailing yacht, he waved at the people on that private yacht, lifting the cat to signal that he had rescued it. Waiting for them to finally stop the yacht and turn around will take some times. "Don't they bring people who can swim?" Kudo Shinichi complained while placing the cat on his 2-person yacht. "This cat is soaking wet, I can't even tell what breed it is." "Ah, this collar seems a bit heavy, maybe they didn't consider the cat falling into the water." Komaeda Nagito leaned closer to take a look, suddenly feeling a sense of familiarity. Kudo-kun, let me see. Kudo Shinichi handed the cat over to him. Komaeda Nagito looked at the soaking wet familiar cat, then looked at the collar, thinking for a moment. Elise? Meow. The cat meowed sweetly. Kudo Shinichi was stunned. Senpai, do you know this cat? Ah, I picked it up before. What a coincidence. Komaeda Nagito stroked the cat. Speaking of which, when that American lady contacted him, she also invited him to Hawaii, but since Komaeda Nagito actually wasn't short of money, he only agreed to put her at ease, otherwise, she would keep calling Ayatsuji Yukito. He merely agreed to the airfare. Not expecting to meet like this. A while later, Kudo Shinichi and Komaeda Nagito were invited onto that private yacht. The rich lady Komaeda Nagito had seen earlier rushed over first, using a towel to hold the kitten. Oh, Elise, poor thing. Thank you, thank you. The lady finally recognized Komaeda Nagito, her face lit up with surprise. It's you again. Ha ha ha, what a coincidence, ma'am. Komaeda Nagito greeted in English. Ah, right, you said you were also coming to Hawaii. The lady's attitude became even more enthusiastic. Is this your friend? If you don't mind, please come and join us for a cup of coffee. They were invited to the top deck of the ship. While going up the stairs, the lady gave a brief introduction. I invited my younger sister's family for vacation. Ah, never mind, anyway, my sister is still always staying in her room and doesn't come out, so you don't need to pay too much attention. As for my sister's husband and those people working with him, you don't need to get involved. Kudo Shinichi raised an eyebrow, exchanging a glance with Komaeda Nagito. Judging from the tone, this person, who calls herself the restorer of her maternal family lineage and could be addressed as Madame Sarah, is very doting on her sister but is quite dissatisfied with her brother-in-law. The younger sister not leaving her room is a bit strange. Judging by Madame Sarah's tone, it doesn't seem like it's the kind of illness like a cold or fever, most likely it's a mental or psychological issue. Kudo Shinichi started to feel like maybe he shouldn't have tagged along. He should have left right after finishing with the cat. The family relationships here were a bit complicated, and coming here felt a little awkward. However, soon he no longer felt awkward. The view from the top deck was quite good. As soon as they came out from the stairway door, they could immediately see two people sitting at a small round table on the deck. One of them was even waving towards them. Komaeda-kun. Madame Sarah was quite surprised. You know each other? Kudo Shinichi, senpai, that person over there seems to be. Yeah. Komaeda Nagito coughed lightly. That's Dazai-kun. Kudo Shinichi. He just won't leave us alone. Why is he everywhere? Dazai-osamu energetically walked over, and even thoughtfully spoke in English. I heard earlier that you were planning to come to America, and I was wondering if it could be such a coincidence, and I can't believe it actually is. Komaeda-kun, your luck is truly amazing. Sarah, who initially thought nothing of it, was now somewhat doubtful. Such a coincidence. Help her find the cat once, from Japan to America, and then help her pick up the cat again, and coincidentally, the person who had business with her brother-in-law also know him. She didn't accidentally falling into some kind of trap, did she? Madam, you may not know, this Komaeda-kun here is the type of person who could randomly pick up a lottery ticket and win the jackpot. Kidnappers who try to abduct him end up falling into a pit and dying, and robbers hijacking cars or bombers end up losing control of everything due to his sheer luck. Dazai-osamu flamboyantly explained, running into acquaintances in weird places is something quite common for him, isn't it, Komaeda-kun? Although it's all true, it sounds really strange the way you say it. Ah. Komaeda Nagito sighed. Madame Sarah was half believing, half doubting. After all, she knew that this series of coincidences couldn't be artificially manipulated, such as the direction the cat was thrown or whether the cat would jump into the ocean or something else. But because it was somewhat subtle, she decided in her heart not to be overly enthusiastic about it. Instead, she would just pay them some regular expenses as a gesture of gratitude for helping find the cat earlier. After that, there was no need for further contact. Ho! Ahead, a man sitting at the same table as Dazai Osamu leaned back in his chair, tilting his body as he casually assessed them. Luck, huh? This is really interesting. Could you demonstrate a bit? At the man's invitation, Kudo Shinichi and Komaeda Nagito, along with Dazai Osamu, sat down at the small round table. Meanwhile, Madame Sarah said she would go check on her younger sister and turned to leave. Dazai Osamu briefly introduced them. This is Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald, simply put, a man with money. Ha! Fitzgerald didn't feel offended. In fact, he found it amusing and chuckled. Indeed, for people like you, any further introduction would be pointless. Just knowing this is enough. Komaeda Nagito asked, Dazai-kun, why are you here? Is it for work? The port mafia hasn't even gained a foothold in Yokohama yet. When did operations expand to America? Well, it's like accompanying a business partner for a trip, you know, Tei Corporation. Dazai Osamu shrugged, roughly because last time I was in charge of talking to the Tei side, so the old man paid special attention to me, and asked the boss to borrow me for a bit. Mori Ogai wasn't exactly willing, because Dazai Osamu was indeed very useful. However, considering that both sides had just begun their cooperation, and also taking into account the previously agreed condition that Port Mafia would lend personnel to Tei for a year, he still agreed. They initially thought Tei was asking for some bodyguards or something, but who knew the old man from Tei would go so far as to request Dazai Osamu. However, since they had already agreed this time, Tei also stated that there wouldn't be any further personnel requests, so it wasn't too bad. Fitzgerald shrugged, I have no interest in the narrow and small East. The Tei Corporation approached me a few times before wanting to discuss cooperation, but I didn't take it seriously. This time, they sent a brat, and I wondered what it was about. But it turns out they borrowed someone. He then couldn't help but say to Dazai Osamu again, have you really not considered switching sides and coming to my place? Yokohama isn't worth you staying there. To be precise, the people from Tei Corporation who came before, Fitzgerald hadn't even seen them. Only this time, when Dazai Osamu came, he found it interesting. Since he happened to be free, he decided to take a look, and ended up being genuinely impressed. He was even convinced enough that, when his sister-in-law invited them for a vacation, he called Dazai Osamu along because he thought this little rascal was very intriguing and was trying to recruit him. Of course, not to recruit him into his company, but into an ability organization he founded called the Guild. Dazai Osamu flatly refused, like I said, not interested. Tisk. Fitzgerald clicked his tongue regretfully, but he still didn't know Dazai Osamu's ability, only that he was a talent individual, so he didn't really dwell on it, merely feeling that Dazai Osamu lacked ambition. Do as you wish, but if you regret it, you can come find me anytime. With the topic of Dazai Osamu concluded, Fitzgerald's attention fell on Komaeda Nagito. Speaking of which, that luck. You're not an ordinary person, are you? Is your ability related to luck? Chapter 53 End.